This is a 2002 Chevy Trailblazer with the Vortec 4200 6-cylinder in it, the Jeep knockoff, and it's got the typical busted power steering pump. We're going to fix it. Let's get into it. And right off the bat, taking the air filter box off, we had to drill a screw out. Had the wrong screw in it, and it's a mile long, and it will not turn. So we're going to get the air filter out of here. Strange, the air filter lays down in the top of the windshield washer box. I've never had one of these apart. This is bizarre. Next, we're going to take this air filter and then the windshield washer box out. We get the windshield washer box out, we'll come back and show you where we're at. Now we got the washer box. We just disconnected the electrical connectors to the pumps, taking the 2 bolts out that holds the washer box in, one down here, one here, and we've laid the whole thing, the whole assembly back on the windshield. Now we can see the power steering pump clearly. We've got to take, looks like there's some wire loom that's attached to the back of the power steering pump, and there's 3 bolts. Oh man, look at that. I'd say this pump's been locked up. The belt's rolled all the way back off the back side. Looks like the bearings are completely gone. Look at that pulley. Wow. Look at that. Look at that pulley. The shaft is completely gone in the bearing in that power steering pump. And it's made the belt turn sideways. Look at this, Tyler. Look at that pulley. The shaft's gone and it's laid all the way over with the belt rolling off the back. I'm going to get these wiring connectors loose off the back side. Then we'll take these 3 bolts out of the front of the pump pulley. I don't even know if we get that pulley off of there. It may be ruined. We'll get those 3 bolts out of the front of the pump pulley. Then we'll lift the whole entire pump up and we'll take the hoses off the back. We'll come back just as soon as we get to that point. First we're going to take this belt off. And you can use a 1/2-inch drive ratchet, but we've got a belt tensioning tool that we'll use to get that off of there. But if you don't have that, you could just use a long 1/2-inch breaker bar or a long 1/2-inch ratchet. Put it right in the front of that tensioner and twist it down. It'll loosen your belt up. We'll be back. So check this out. We took the belt off of the pump and pulled on the pulley, and the whole entire shaft come out of the power steering pump. It's not supposed to happen. Well, at least now it's easy to get to the 3 bolts that hold the pump on. So we'll do that next, and we'll show you how to get the hoses off when we come back. Now that Tyler has got the 3 bolts out of the front, which are either 1/2-inch or 13mm, I think both fits, but I think they're supposed to be 13s. Now that he's got that taken loose from the engine, he's got a little wire clip that come off the back that held a wiring harness on. Now he's got a rubber hose down here. It's just got a hose clamp on it. And also in the front, down here at the bottom, there's a 5/8 nut for your pressure line. So he's got to back that 5/8 nut off and then take that rubber hose off. We'll be able to get the pump out of there, and we can switch the pulleys over and slap the new pump in. Here's where you start getting into specialty stuff. You have to get this pulley off of here, and you need one of these pulley puller and installer kits. Now you can what they call rent these at the auto parts stores, where you just buy it straight out, and you have the option to keep it, but if you don't ever need it again, you just buy it the one time, then you take it back when you get the pulley removed and installed, and then you just get your money back. You get all your money back. They don't charge you a rental fee or nothing. So it's pretty handy, but I just happen to have one. Mine's kind of junky. It's one of them Amazon Chinesian specials, but it does work. I've pulled a lot of pulleys and put them back on with it. We've got to get it off the broken shaft over here and then put it on this shaft on this new pump. So I'll get it set up and I'll show you what it looks like set. Alright, I've got the pulley partially set up. You just take one of these little pins and put down in the center of the shaft, and you put this lock collar on with a reverse nut. Then all you gotta do is thread this little bolt down in there. And that one's too long. Have to use a shorter one probably. Got this little fat-headed one. I guess it'll go down in there. We get set up. Now with this little pin, the pulley came off the shaft.
Is that supposed to happen?
Yeah, it comes apart when you take it out of there. You take this sleeve off, take these two clamshells off, and then you got your bushing you can take out of there. You remember that the curve faces out, so you set your pump up and you put it back on exactly the same way. I'll set the pump up and I'll show you as we put it on. When you put it back together, instead of putting a smooth pin in, you want to put a threaded pin in, and the kit has several options with threads on them and smooth. But when you're installing, you want a threaded one. You threaded the longest one that you can thread into it. That thread's in there. And then you can put, I think you put this shaft on. Hold this camera for me a second. I ain't used this thing much. I've used this kit a whole lot, but make sure this will go through there. Yep. Thread this on to your bolt that you've got in the shaft. Now bring your pulley down. Make sure it goes on pretty square. Then you can use this bearing. This bearing will go down and sit on top of your pulley. You can put this on top of that. All you gotta do now is hold one and twist the other. I need a wrench to hold this one, so we'll get us a big wrench and we'll be back. See if you can see that in the lens there. Now if Tyler wasn't holding back on that 1/2 inch bolt, it would bind itself down into the shaft and we'd never be able to get back out. Looks like we're almost there. Take this nut right here off and see if it's close on top. Oops. That's about right, I'd say. Maybe a little bit too far. We'll see how it lines up. If it don't line up exactly, we can always pull it back out just a little bit. When I took it out, my centerpiece came out with it, so that's good. Now we've got the hoses back on. What in the world? That's blinding the camera. The hoses are back on the pump. The pulley's back on the pump. Now it just slides into this bracket. And Tyler's going to reach in there and put the bolts through. We go right down in there. This time he'll have to go through the pulley. We didn't have to do that the first time. But he'll go through and put those bolts in. And everything goes in reverse of how you took it off. We'll put the pump on, the belt on, then put the washer box back in, and then the breather box, and everything should be done. All we have to do then is bleed the power steering pump. And we've got the fluid lines back on. Tyler's got all 3 of the front bolts in. And the pulley is lined up. It's hard to see. It's lined up good. Put that wire out there before we lock it in behind that belt. See, really. A lot better than it was. It was completely crooked and the belt was off the back. But we'll get the belt on it. And just as we're putting the box and stuff back in, we'll show you where we're at then. Tyler's got the pump and belt back on, if you can see it. He's got the washer box back in, hooking them up. I got to plug these electrical plugs back up for the pumps down there. Got them rubber bushes, it's kind of hard to get them to seat. And weather packs. Now before we put the breather on, we're going to fill this thing up with we're going to fill it up with fluid and just let it gravity slowly pull it through the system, see if there's any leaks before we start this engine up. Okay, we got the reservoir filled. I spilled a little bit. We're just going to let gravity take over for a few minutes until it gets into the lines. While we're letting that gravity bleed, we're going to put the breather back on and plug the mass airflow sensor and stuff like that back up and get that wrapped up, and then we'll show you guys how we're going to bleed it with the engine running.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got everything back on, the air box, belts, the pulleys back on, everything's plugged back up. Now we're going to do a bleed on it. Start it up.
A bit loud.
Is it loud? Oh, okay. Slowly work the wheels back and forth, slowly. Hold it, straight off. It sucked it dry. I gotta put some more fluid in it. Alright. It drank all the fluid, but the level's back topped off now. What I'm going to get her to do, you can't hear it over the engine noise. I'm going to have her crank the steering wheel slowly left and right, back and forth until we get rid of the foaming bubbles. I'm hoping there's no metal inside of the rest of the power steering system because the other pump was disintegrated. I see red fluid in there. We didn't start off with red fluid. Let's just hope it don't crash this pump. She's going to start it up and slowly work it back and forth and try to work the bubbles out of the pump. Go ahead and start it.
Is it throwing it everywhere?
Yeah, we got a leak somewhere bad. God, it's spraying all over the place. I don't know where the leak's at, but we'll have to find it. We'll get back to you. Well, we're going to end this video here. We've got a hose rubbed through down there somewhere after we got the pump on. It's probably what burnt the pump up. It had a busted line. I just want to show how to change this pump. We'll have to go through and diagnose what the rest of the problems are and maybe put new power steering lines on it. We done went through 2 bottles and it leaked it out, sprayed it everywhere. It's not coming from the pump or any of the lines on the pump, somewhere into the bottom of the radiator. But I do appreciate you guys watching. Thanks for hanging out with us today. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe. And hit the notification bell. That way when we post a new video, you'll be able to see what our new content is. Thanks for watching, everybody. Stay clean.